Yo, it's H2O.
Plasma.
Ow!
Are you okay?
No, it hurts. Who made pain exist?
Your own neurons?
Neurons, as in brain cells?
More or less. Neurons are cells that transmit information using electrical impulses. They have a cell body with a nucleus, an axon to transmit the impulses, and dendrites to communicate with other neurons.
What do you mean by communicate?
Hi, I'm Neuron 1. Hi, I'm Neuron 2.
No, not like that. They use electrochemical signals.
How?
Neurons have a voltage because the charge inside the cytoplasm of the neuron is more negative than the charge outside the neuron. The difference is around -70 millivolts. This difference is known as the membrane potential.
Why is there a difference?
Great question. There are several reasons. The first one is that the neurons have sodium-potassium pumps on their membranes. These pump 3 sodium ions out and 2 potassium ions in. Pumping more positive charges out makes the membrane potential negative. Secondly, the membrane allows ions to move through protein channels by diffusion. It is more permeable to potassium than to sodium ions. The third reason is that there are negatively charged proteins.
Does that make neurons suddenly be able to talk to each other?
Be patient, Plasma. Can you stay quiet until I finish explaining everything? This starting membrane potential of around -70 millivolts is called the resting potential because it is the default potential. Sometimes the neuron gets a stimulus, which can cause the membrane potential to become more positive. When it reaches a threshold potential of around -50 millivolts, the sodium ion channels will open. Given that the sodium ions will move from an area of high concentration to low concentration, where do you predict the sodium ions will move? Good! It will move from the outside to the inside of the neuron. This makes the membrane potential to reach around 30 millivolts. Potassium ion channels will open as well, but they take a bit more time to react, so they open after the sodium ion channels. Potassium ions flow out by diffusion, decreasing the membrane potential to a value that is even lower than the resting potential. Relax. It will go back to the resting potential. After this stage, the sodium and potassium ion channels will have closed, so the sodium-potassium pump and all the other mechanisms will return the membrane potential to where it was originally. This impulse is called an action potential. It consists of depolarization, where the membrane potential gets closer to zero, and repolarization, where the membrane potential gets further away from zero. The part where the membrane potential reaches slightly below the resting potential is known as hyperpolarization. What is important to remember about action potentials is that it either happens or it doesn't happen. Once the threshold potential is reached, the action potential will be triggered. There is no in between. Another interesting thing is that it only occurs in one region of the neuron. But once that action potential is triggered, the depolarization also triggers action potentials in the neighboring areas. This leads to a chain reaction, which allows the impulse to be transmitted along the axon. You might be wondering, why does the impulse travel in only one way? Once it reaches the middle, for example, why doesn't it cause action potentials in the regions preceding it? This is because once the sodium and potassium ion channels are opened, they are then temporarily inactivated. This means that you can't open the channels soon after it was first opened. As a result, the action potential is propagated in only one direction. Here's a question for you. Would you expect the transmission process to be quicker when the axon has a larger diameter or a smaller diameter? Okay, fine, you can talk to tell me your answer.
I have no idea.
I thought you had a proper answer. The answer is that a larger diameter allows for quicker transmission of impulses. You can think about it like a wire. The larger the diameter, the less resistance it has, so the quicker the impulse can be transmitted. Another way to increase the speed is through myelination, meaning adding a myelin sheath. This is made of Schwann cells, which insulates the axon. This way, the transmission of the signals can occur only at the gaps between the Schwann cells, rather than at each point along the axon. These gaps are called roads of Ranvier. Now that we have explained how the impulse is transmitted along the axon, let's explain how signals are passed from a neuron to another thing.
What do you mean by other thing?
This other thing can be another neuron, a muscle, or gland cell. But for all of these, the junction between the neuron and this other thing is called a synapse.
So basically the place where they meet each other.
Sending you a message. Received it.
That's right. But neurons don't talk. Instead, they use neurotransmitters. These are chemicals stored in compartments called vesicles inside the neuron. When there is a nerve impulse, calcium ions flow in, which cause the vesicles to fuse with the membrane of the neuron, releasing the neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters then bind to the receptor on the other neuron, causing a response. You might be wondering what kind of response. A common response is the generation of an excitatory postsynaptic potential.
Okay, sounds complicated.
The concept is not, though. This just means that the receptor binding to the neuron will cause depolarization in the neuron after the synapse, the postsynaptic neuron.
Oh, fine, I get that.
If there is enough depolarization and the threshold potential is reached, an action potential will be triggered, leading to the series of events we explained earlier.
Oh, so that's how neurons communicate.
Yeah! One last thing. Since the neurotransmitters have been released, they need to be removed, or else the signal is just going to stay there for a really long time.
Just like...
Sending you a message.
That's a good analogy. For a type of neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, this is done by breaking down the neurotransmitter into acetate and choline.
Cool!
For those of you watching this, please fill in the feedback form in the description. This will help us make our videos better.